This was rough. I have done plenty of reviews, rants, and especially unholy rants. I've done a lot of them at this point, and they're all bad in their own little ways. I mean, some are worse than others. And other times, I do some movies just because there are bad things in them and realize I could save everybody. Somebody save me. But this is a film that I can't say one good thing about. In fact, I don't think there is anything redeeming or good about this movie. It is almost worse than I remember. I am talking about The Crow, Wicked Prayer. And before I get into this movie even existing, if it sounds like I'm just shitting on any Crow movie that has come out after the original because maybe I love the original too much, there might be some truth to that. But after shitting on the second movie, City of Prayers, I said good things about the third Crow movie, The Crow Salvation, which came out in 2000. It's actually the first direct-to-DVD release of the Crow films, and I think that movie is decent. It's not great, it's not perfect, but there are plenty of things about that film that I think work. So it's possible to not only make a decent sequel to The Crow, but for me to not shit on a sequel to The Crow. That's where 5 years later, in 2005, for whatever reason, the producers at Miramax thought it was a great idea to do another direct-to-DVD sequel called Wicked Prayer. And you could blame so many people in this instant. I mean, yes, I said the producers, and a lot of them are to blame. But let's look at the director of this movie, Lance Mungia. If that's even how you pronounce your fucking name, I don't care, because the way you directed this movie was dog shit. There is so much wrong with the way this movie is directed, and who knows, maybe after shooting it, he was in the editing room, he was trying to put the movie together, almost like a puzzle piece of like, man, this is worse than we even realized, so let's beef this movie up. Let's add all of this flashy editing, this yellow piss orange like tint that is somehow worse than the tint that was in City of Angels. This one looks way worse. And I know that because of how the first movie was sort of handcuffed with how they had to piece together the flashbacks and the sequences of the death scene, that doesn't mean that every sequel has to try to copy that or try to mimic that. But this isn't even in flashback form. This movie is showing scenes in real time that are flashy and edited all choppily. I don't understand. But don't forget about the two writers. Can you believe it was two people that wrote this piece of shit? So let's start this rant with the casting of Edward Furlong as Jimmy, aka The Crow. Now, I know when people think of Edward Furlong, for the most part, what do we all think of? We think of Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Possibly one of the best movies ever made, at least from my childhood. It's absolutely one of the best movies ever made. And he was great as a young child actor in that film. And I'm not saying he hasn't acted well in anything else since. In fact, in American History X, I thought he was great in that as well. There's probably a couple other movies that I haven't even seen that he may have been good in. But for whatever reason, even though I grew up on Terminator 2, this is the first thing I think of when I think of Edward Furlong. That's how bad he is here. It's brutal. It's rough. I mean, I know he may have gotten more awkward the older he got, or I know that maybe this script sucks so bad that how do you act to make it work? But seeing him even at the beginning when he's supposed to be this normal guy. I mean, I know he's gotten in trouble before. He killed this guy or accidentally beat the fuck out of this guy because the guy tried to rape his girlfriend back in the day. But whatever. This is a guy that you're supposed to have sympathy for, that you're supposed to feel bad for because he's dating this girl and her family hates him. And so he wants to try to get out of the town, but they're trying to get enough money to do so. I don't care. And when you look at his girlfriend, who's played by Emmanuel Tricky, I've seen this actress in so many things where she's always the girlfriend of some dude who is unbelievable that he was able to get her in the first place. First time I saw her was on that TV show Entourage. Then I saw her in You Don't Mess with the Zohan, where somehow Adam Sandler got her. And now Edward Furlong gets her? Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. She is far too hot to wind up with weird ass dudes like this. So of course they run into the wrong gang. You find out that this group of Satanists, like a biker gang of sorts, they want to obtain the powers of Lucifer. And so they perform this ritual and they brutally murder the happy couple. And it's this weird fucking process. It's one of those situations where, again, it's hard to blame the actors, even though they really are doing such a piss poor job of doing this. But the writing, the situation itself is so over the top and goofy and silly as fuck that I can't even buy into the hideousness of the actions that they're committing. And the way how this is shot is so poor that it does not come across as sick and twisted as it's supposed to. No, it just comes across as silly and fake and not believable. The actors in this gang, let's talk about it. David Boreanaz, I probably butchered his name, but you all know him from Buffy. Angel, right? Of course. This is after Buffy. This is after Angel. How the fuck did he get bogged down in some bullshit like this? How did his agent convince him to do some bullshit like this? And you see his girlfriend is played by Tara Reid. Now, she's not as surprising. It checks out that she would be in a film like this. And normally I would beat up Tara Reid on her acting because she's not a good actress. And so, but you casted her in this movie. What did you expect? In fact, I almost commend her on playing such an evil villain character that at least her herself is trying something different than what I'm used to her seeing, like in these teen raunchy comedy films. Like at least she tried, as shitty as that is. You have his henchmen who go by the name of Pestilence and Famine. Fuck, man, what are we doing? Oh, fuck. One of them is played by Tito Ortiz, who I know was a big deal in UFC. I know everybody and their mom knew who Tito Ortiz was or had seen him or heard of him. He was everywhere at this point, but that does not mean you should put him in your movies. He's acting is not one of his talents. Also, another thing that I noticed right off the bat, right in the beginning sequence, is how loud and bombastic the score is. And not just that, but the choice of score. This Native American music that constantly is playing, the drums beating over and over again that almost is giving me a headache while I'm watching. And I get that they're trying to dip into the girlfriend's family, the backstory and whatnot, but it would probably make more sense if Edward Furlong's character was also Native American or also of the same culture. Him being a white dude, just another white dude, just doesn't really work for whatever it is that they're going for. In this brutal ritual, they're trying to reawaken the Antichrist, right? That's the whole thing. And you see Tara Reid reading from this book, and she's reciting everything that they're supposed to do. They cut out the girlfriend's eyes, and I guess Tara Reid absorbs them. It's so weird because she takes out the eyeballs and then she puts them up to her eyes, up to her face, and then the camera cuts away, and then it cuts back, and they're gone. The eyeballs are gone from her hands, and she's looking as if, did she absorb them? Did she magically absorb them? Did she actually physically put the eyes in her own eye socket? I don't even give a shit enough to complain, bitch, or argue more about this, about how dumb this is, or the fact that David Boreanaz stabs Edward Furlong in the heart, rips his heart out, and then same thing. Does he consume his heart? Does he eat his heart? Does he just rub the heart up against his own chest? And then magically the 666 symbol appears, that tattoo appears on his chest. This is all so horrible. I was angry rewatching all of this. Edward Furlong, he wakes up, he gets resurrected by a crow, and him throwing a temper tantrum, waking up from that cooler, and he's throwing shit around, and he's supposed to be this badass. It's you're not buying it. This isn't believable at all. He has the moment where he gets the memories of when he had previously put on this face makeup and this goth costume. So he reapplies itself. I know they feel like they have to do this all because this was done in the original, because Brandon Lee's character did it. So every single one of these movies has to have him put on this makeup. But every single one, it's like they want it to look like Brandon Lee, but they don't make it look like Brandon Lee, so it doesn't look exactly right. So it always looks off. It always looks like they just fucked up, or this is a horrible cosplay that just makes you want to reapply and redo the makeup for the character themselves. And Edward Furlong, intimidating he is not. He's walking around having this weird walk and trying to look mean. He's grunting and trying to grit his teeth and look angry, look pissed off. Even when he goes after the gang members one by one and he's trying to look intimidating, they might have that initial shock of being surprised that he's still alive. But then it quickly goes away because he starts to talk and he starts to interrogate, and there's no bass in his voice. There's no intimidation factor in the way that he does it. He would probably easily get his ass kicked if he didn't have the powers of the crow with him. And there's one point where the crow gets injured, of course, gets hurt, and so Edward Furlong is weakened. And again, we've done this. We've seen this 100 times. We need to find something else. We need to find a new way to tell this story. Because to repeat the same exact story beats, it constantly, consistently comes across as a cheap imitation of the far superior film. Stop it. Stop doing this. This is not working at all. As I mentioned before, his girlfriend's father did not like him. There's this whole back and forth. And they actually think that Edward Furlong was the one that killed the daughter in the first place. Why? Especially when it's very well known that this gang exists in the town and they go around and do fucked up shit. I mean, come on. But they didn't like him, so I guess they just thought the excuse of it. The father is going around, going after him, until Edward Furlong telepathically shows him visually, like puts in his head the images of what happened to them. So now they know the truth. And there's this whole sequence of Edward Furlong interacting with the wife, and it's this whole emotional scene. But man, I had to fast forward. I've already seen this, and I can't deal with it. I can't. The acting is atrocious. Dennis Hopper's character. Whoa, wait, yes, Dennis Hopper is in this movie. He plays El Nino. You cannot make this shit up. He plays a satanic preacher. He's the leader of the group, the gang, that went out and killed them and performed the ritual. He's the leader. He's the one that convinces him to do all of this. He's convincing them that they're able to get the powers and whatever the fuck. And so, of course, David Boreanaz, Luke, he kills Dennis Hopper to absorb the powers of Lucifer, Holy fuck, I'm actually saying this out loud. Yes, David Boreanaz becomes Lucifer. Like, he just becomes one with the devil. And there's a part of me that thinks that this could have worked in a far superior movie, in a movie that actually had competent writing, competent direction, and better actors to pull this off. The whole idea of the crow bringing back a person from the dead, there's already supernatural elements a part of this story. So essentially, if you want to create a big bad villain to go up against the crow, or for the crow to go up against, it actually makes sense to maybe have some sort of evil superpowered version of that going around on the other side. There is something to that. There is something that could be played up with that or explored with that, but it's not explored. It's just the laziest thing I think I've ever seen on screen. Danny Trejo is in this movie. It's like a who's who of how did they get the people that they got to be in this. I mean, Dennis Hopper, a part of me has always respected him as an actor and whenever he plays a villain, but let's be real, he's also done a lot of shitty ass movies as well, and this is one of the last movies I think he did before he died. But Danny Trejo, he also, I guess, has done really bad films, but because he was Machete, because he was known as like an action legend of some sort, it's still sad and painful to watch him in this movie, especially when he has to perform the crow dance in order to revive and heal the injured crow. Holy hell. Hopefully, he got a good paycheck out of this. Although the fact that this is direct to DVD, there's no way that anybody's getting paid a big paycheck. This is just for a nice lunch and some water for the most part. So the movie, of course, ends with Edward Furlong killing Luke, aka Lucifer, aka Angel, aka David Boreanaz. He puts a stick through his throat, whatever. I mean, he kills him fairly easily for somebody who got the powers of the devil, but you know this movie didn't have the budget in order to do this. And then Tara Reid's character, somebody who has done just as much shitty things, fucked up things. She's the one that stole his girlfriend's eyes. She doesn't get killed. No, that would actually be satisfying. No, she just gets arrested. What the fuck? I mean, maybe they felt like they had to keep one of them alive so that it could make Edward Furlong innocent, that they don't think that he's the one that killed the girlfriend. But Edward Furlong's already dead. His character is going back to death after all of this. So who gives a shit? Who gives a fuck? Her character should have died. A big fat waste. But at this point, this whole entire movie is a waste. This whole movie is the biggest waste of time I think I have ever done for these unholy rants. This film should not exist. This film should be scrubbed from the history books, from the cinema books. This is an abomination on films in general. When people talk about certain movies and how horrible they are, how they are the worst movies they've ever seen, I always laugh because I know they have not seen what I have seen. They have not been where I have been. They have not seen the bullshit that I saw. So guys, fuck. Let me know in the comments below if you too have seen The Crow Wicked Prayer. Do you agree that it's some of the worst? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Fuck. Later.